The Psychology of the Hated Child, Carl Jung. Hello, I want to invite you to have a conversation about something you might know very well, even if you've never used these words for it. It's about the feeling of being a stranger in your own home, of feeling an emptiness where there should have been warmth. It's about the psychology of the child who felt hated, or perhaps in a more subtle and even more painful way, simply unwanted. Imagine this scene. A little boy sits at the dinner table. He doesn't talk much. He learned early on that silence is safer. If he says the wrong thing, the room will go quiet and eyes will turn sharp. So he just stares at his plate, moving food around, wishing he could disappear. His sister gets a smile for sharing her day. His brother gets encouragement for his grades. But when he speaks, the air changes. His words are not treated as a child's mistakes, but as offenses. He feels like an intruder. This image is not just a scene from a sad movie. For many people, this scene is a living memory, a photograph from their own childhood. It isn't always an obvious hatred with yelling and aggression. Sometimes it's an energetic hatred, one that lives in the small details, in the tired sigh when you enter a room, in the lack of interest in your presence, in the constant feeling that you are an interruption and not a joy. And if you are reading this and you feel a tightness in your chest, an uncomfortable familiarity, know that you are not alone. And more importantly, what you felt is real, and it has a name. Let's talk about it, not with difficult psychological terms, but as friends taking the hand of one of the greatest explorers of the human soul, Carl Jung, to guide us. He helps us understand what happens inside of us when we grow up with this wound. The knot in our soul begins when not being loved becomes, I am not worthy of love. Every human being is born with a fundamental search, to belong. It's like a small plant stretching towards the sun. We seek warmth, safety, and above all, acceptance. A child doesn't arrive in the world with walls. They are an open book, fragile and hungry for love. When that love is withheld, or worse, replaced with resentment, the child doesn't just feel unloved. Their mind takes it a step further, a very dangerous step. They begin to believe they are unworthy of being loved. And this small difference changes everything. Because being unloved is a condition, something that is happening to you, but being unworthy of love, that becomes who you are. It becomes an identity. This is where the journey inward begins. To survive this pain, this terrible belief, we start to create defense mechanisms. It's as if our psyche, our soul, tries to build a suit of armor. And the great psychologist Carl Jung gave us maps to understand this armor. The mask we wear to survive, which he called the persona, is the face we show to the world. It's our attempt to fit in and gain approval. The child who feels rejected becomes an expert at creating these masks. They think, if my real self isn't loved, then I must become someone else. And from this, some very common characters are born. First, the perfectionist. This child believes that if they are flawless, if they make no mistakes, if they get the best grades and are the best at everything, they will finally be worthy of love. The problem is that the love they seek is conditional, based on performance. The fear of failure is constant and the pressure is crushing. The mask of perfectionism is heavy and exhausting. Second, the people pleaser. This child learns to read their environment with surgical precision. They become an emotional chameleon, molding themselves into whatever others want or expect them to be. They say yes when they want to say no, swallowing their own needs and feelings so as not to bother anyone. Their main mission is to keep everyone happy, hoping that in return they will receive a little affection and not be abandoned. The mask of the people pleaser disconnects them from who they truly are. And third, the rebel. Sometimes the child takes the opposite path. If they are already seen as the problem, then they embrace that role with all their might. They become defiant, argumentative, the black sheep. This rebellion is armor. It's a way of saying, I will push you away before you can hurt me again. It is a cry of pain disguised as anger. Beneath the mask of the rebel, there is a deep fear of rejection. These masks are brilliant survival strategies. They help us get through childhood. The danger, as Jung pointed out, is that we can identify so much with the mask that we forget who is behind it. We confuse the character with our true self and spend decades living a role we never consciously chose. So if we are wearing a mask to show the world only our acceptable parts, what happens to everything else? What happens to our sadness, our anger, our vulnerability, our fears? The parts of us that were criticized, ignored, or punished. They don't disappear. They get pushed into a dark little room inside of us. Jung called this place the shadow. The shadow is not a monster. It is simply the sum of everything we hide, from ourselves and from others, for fear of not being loved. For the child who felt rejected, the shadow is immense. Inside this dark room they hold the core belief: I am fundamentally flawed. There is something wrong with me. Emotions like anger and sadness are seen as dangerous, because showing them could lead to even more rejection. The problem is, the more we ignore what's in that room, the more power it gains over us. The shadow begins to leak out. It shows up in outbursts of anger we don't understand, in feelings of shame that paralyze us, in self-sabotage. And most of all, it shows up through something Jung called projection. Projection is when we see in others what we cannot see in ourselves. If you have a lot of repressed anger in your shadow, you will see anger everywhere. If you feel inadequate, you will interpret any neutral comment as criticism. The child who grew up being rejected becomes an adult who sees rejection around every corner, even where it doesn't exist. A friend who takes too long to reply to a message, a boss with a serious expression, everything becomes a confirmation of that old wound. I am not wanted. I knew it. But the story does not have to end here. The pain does not have to be the final chapter. Jung believed that every human life is a journey to become whole, to become who we truly are. He called this process individuation. For the child who felt rejected, this journey is a homecoming to their true self. It is a path of healing that involves a few brave and compassionate steps. First, you must recognize the wounded inner child. Inside every adult who went through this, that child still lives. That little boy at the dinner table, that little girl who waited for a hug that never came, this is your inner child archetype, as Jung would say. It is not a silly metaphor. It is a real part of your psyche that holds all the memories and pain from that time. Healing begins when you, as the adult you are today, turn towards that child. When you stop ignoring their cries. It is a process of reparenting yourself. It means giving yourself now what you never received back then. It is looking at that inner child and saying, with all the sincerity of your heart, I see you. Your pain was real. You were not to blame. You were worthy of love then, and you are worthy of love now. I am here, and I will not abandon you. It may sound simple, but this act of internal recognition is profoundly transformative. It is the beginning of the end of loneliness. Next, you must gently remove the mask. The journey of individuation invites us to question the masks we wear. Who am I beneath the perfectionism? What do I truly want, feel, and need behind my urge to please everyone? What pain is hidden beneath my armor of rebellion? Taking off the mask doesn't mean becoming irresponsible or aggressive. It means allowing yourself to be human. It means accepting that you can make mistakes, that you have the right to say no, that you can have your own needs, and that your vulnerability is not a weakness, but a part of your humanity. It is a slow process which requires the courage to be authentic in a world that often pressures us to wear masks. Finally, you must open the door to that dark little room and integrate the shadow. The bravest part of the journey is perhaps opening the door to the shadow. It is looking at the parts of yourself that you have rejected and feared for so long. It is welcoming your anger, understanding that it is just a signal that a boundary has been crossed. It is embracing your sadness, allowing it to wash away the old wounds. Integrating the shadow means understanding that you are not just light. You are a complete human being with light and darkness. And it is in accepting this totality that true strength resides. When you accept your shadow, it stops controlling you from behind the scenes. The anger that once exploded without control can be transformed into assertiveness. The sadness that paralyzed you can be transformed into empathy. And here is a secret that Jung understood very well. In our shadow there are not only flaws. Often we also hide our greatest treasures there. Your sensitivity, which was called drama, can be your greatest source of empathy and creativity. Your stubbornness, which was seen as a problem, can be your incredible willpower. By making peace with your shadow, you reclaim precious parts of yourself that were exiled. This leads us to a paradoxical and wonderful truth. The child who felt rejected, though they carry a deep wound, also develops extraordinary gifts. Your heightened sensitivity to reading the environment, which was a survival mechanism, can transform into powerful intuition and deep empathy. You can feel what others feel because you spent your whole life doing it to protect yourself. When healed, this ability becomes a gift that connects you deeply to other people. Your resilience, forged in a childhood of emotional survival, can become immense courage to face life's storms. You have already survived what is, for a child, the worst of all fears, the lack of belonging. This gives you a strength that many do not know. Your search for answers, for understanding why did this happen to me, can lead you on a journey of self-knowledge that transforms you into a person with unusual depth and wisdom. You were forced to question everything from the beginning, and this can give you a clarity about life that is rare. You are not condemned to repeat history. The healing journey is not about erasing the past. The scars will always be there, as a reminder of what you have overcome, but they no longer have to dictate your future. Healing is understanding your story so that you can finally stop repeating it unconsciously. It is moving from being a victim of your childhood circumstances to becoming the author of your adult life. It is to stop asking, "Why wasn't I loved?" and to start asking, "How do I choose to live and love now?" It is about building a home within yourself, a place where all your parts are welcome: the scared child, the mask that protected you, the shadow that holds your secrets and your treasures. When you feel at home within yourself, the desperate need for external validation diminishes. You begin to attract people who see you and love you for who you really are, mask, shadow, and all. So let us return to that image from the beginning. The little boy at the table feeling invisible. Perhaps that child still lives inside of you, waiting to be seen. The invitation now is simple and profound. Look at them, see them, and tell them what no one else did, the words that your soul has waited a lifetime to hear. You are worthy, you are enough, you belong. Welcome home. Because healing begins the exact moment the child who felt rejected is finally met with love. Not a borrowed or conditional love, but the unwavering love that says, you exist, and therefore you matter. And that is the deepest truth of all. You were not a hated child. You were a child waiting patiently for someone, perhaps even yourself, to finally say yes to your existence. And it is never too late to say that yes.